Hi there, we are Group Coral number 5, and these are our teams. My name is Adziri.
My name is May.
I'm Caitlin.
And I'm Celeste.
Okay, so I will start by introducing the tools you'll need to begin the dissection. Your first tool would be their disposable tray, your gloves, your dissecting scissors, your dissecting pins that look something like this, your 2 probes that are the dull and the sharp, and a set of forceps. And of course, a plastic bag. Step 1 would be to place your earthworm on a dissecting tray, laying on its back, which would be the dorsal, having it on the dark side, and it has to be fully stretched. Step 2 would be with your dissecting scissors to begin by making an incision through the body wall posterior to the clitellum. The clitellum is a smooth ring, as you can see right here, that is anterior to the earthworm. Step 3 would be to carefully open the body wall while cutting into the septa, as you can see here. Then eventually you'll be holding in place the body wall with dissecting pins. Another key point I would like to point out is that when you're opening, you'll begin to notice the cuticle.
Okay, so unlike other organisms, annelids do not have a complex multi-lobe brain. Instead, they have a simple nervous system. When you open up the earthworm from the dorsal side near the top or the anterior end of the specimen, you'll see these 2 brown-like structures that are light in color, and these are the cerebral ganglion, which are essentially a cluster of nerve cell bodies. While they do have a mouth, the earthworm does not actually have like any eyes. However, their skin contains photoreceptors, and those epithelial cells are in charge of detecting external stimuli, specifically light. Once you open up the digestive tract and move it out of the way, by the belly side, you will find the ventral nerve cord, a thin structure that extends from the cerebral ganglion to the posterior end, or the anus. It contains nerve fibers, and it takes care of overseeing sensory impulses as well as coordinating motor functions. Now, in between the 2 sides of the nephridium of the excretory system, the earthworm also has subpharyngeal ganglion, which are in the form of these lobed parts organized into segments that are again bundles of nerve cells. They run down the length of the annelid and are also located under the digestive organs.
I am going to talk about the circulatory system and briefly mention the digestive system. So, on an annelid worm, they do have a complete digestive system. And you can see that it starts at the mouth. The pharynx pulls food into the body. It goes through the esophagus, stored in the crop, digested in the gizzard, and it moves down the intestine all the way out to the anus. So they do have an open circulatory system, unlike humans. That means that for a certain portion of time, they have hemolymph instead of blood. And for a certain portion of time, that hemolymph is going to be outside blood vessels. So the aortic arches right here are very important. There's about 5 of them, and they act as small hearts. So they pump the hemolymph throughout the body. The hemolymph goes into the ventral nerve into the body. So the ventral nerve is on sort of the belly side of the worm. And if you were to cut it open and open it up, you'd have to sort of pull the intestine out of the way if you were looking at it from the dorsal side in order to see it. It runs right along next to this cord right here for its nervous system. So it does have sort of a looping system like we do. So it goes into this ventral vessel, goes down, it distributes blood throughout the body in these subneural vessels and lateral neural vessels. And then it comes back up through this dorsal neural vessel and back into these aortic arches where it's pumped again. Another thing I would like to mention is that they have nephridia. Nephridia act as their waste removal system. They filter the hemolymph kind of like a kidney would, and they pull out metabolic waste. This also helps for keeping a good level of fluid and not losing too much fluid. And these wastes are expelled through the nephridopores.
I'm gonna be going over the reproductive system. Earthworms are monoecious, so that means they have both the male and female reproductive organs. Despite this, they don't generally self-fertilize, so they do mate with other earthworms in order to reproduce. So going over the male reproductive organs first, we have the testes here, which during the dissection, you won't actually see the testes. It's inside the seminal vesicle, but that is where the sperm cells are produced. And then we have the seminal vesicle. These are the sacs that store the maturing sperm cells. And then we have the seminal receptacles up here, these little smaller organs. And those store the sperm from whatever worm that they mated with. And then we have the sperm ducts, these kind of long tubes that run down here. Those carry sperm cells out of the body through the male genital pore. That male genital pore will be part of the external anatomy. And then moving on to the female reproductive organs, we have the ovaries here, which produces the egg cells. And we have these little funnel tube-like structures, oviducts, and those actually carry the egg cells out of the worm through their female pores, which is also going to be that external pore on the outside of their body. So externally, we also have raised bit of fleshy tissue that we talked about earlier called the clitellum. And basically the clitellum creates this cocoon that holds on to the fertilized eggs of the earthworm. And that cocoon gets shedded off of the earthworm and into the soil. And then after 2 to 3 weeks of the eggs being deposited into the soil, the new generation of earthworms will hatch out.